All right, sir. We're back with another episode.
We are back.
Yeah.
The world famous New Game Plus podcast. If you're just tuning in, we are New Game Plus. We are a retro video game store here in Kingston, New Hampshire. So come and check us out if you like the podcast. And always, let us know about the topic. Leave some comments down below. We'd love to engage with you guys and hear how wrong we are about absolutely everything.
Yeah. And speaking of doing not the wrong thing, but the right thing, you should subscribe, like, comment, do all of the things. Follow us on social, Instagram, Facebook. We're going to get that plug right out of the way so we can dive into our topic today. I'm John, by the way, and this gentleman is...
I'm Brendan, and this New Game Plus podcast. We talk about all things retro, current gaming. We're a pair of old nerds. So today we are talking about one of our favorite consoles, the Nintendo Switch.
Yes. Yeah.
And the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2.
Yes. We're going all in on the Switch 2 today. Like, we want to cover all things Switch, like why we're so excited about it. We want to talk about some of the rumors, the legitimacy of some of these rumors, the crazy leaks that broke Japan and Nintendo. Like, this whole thing has just been a giant cluster F.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were talking about this in the store a couple weeks ago when some of these, heavy-hitting leaks came out that seemed pretty legit, and a week after, it felt like Nintendo's hand had been forced. And we don't really know too much from Nintendo about the Switch 2 yet.
Yeah.
But everything we know was spot on from some of those recent leaks, which is... interesting.
Yeah, from what I understand, like, Nintendo is furious right now, and they're kind of, I guess they're like in damage control mode, because like you said, their hand was definitely forced on this. Like, you can usually spot like a fake leak pretty easy,
right?
But all of this stuff turned out to be like not even like partially correct, but like this was all like 100%
down
correct.
To the color of the Switch and how they're doing the offset underneath the Joy-Cons for the color instead of the Joy-Con itself, which I thought was strange. I thought that was like a weird design thing, like you'd see on like a design document, but not on the actual Switch.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where I'm kind of iffy on it. Like, just feels weird to me. A lot of people like having like the customizable, different colors for your Joy-Cons. So it feels weird to me that the default is now like, oh, this one has a little orange under the joystick, and this one's a little blue,
That was kind of the default for the original Switch in general, wasn't it? Like one Joy-Con was like blue and the other was orange.
Yeah, but the whole Joy-Con was that color, not just under the joystick, sort of as like a...
I see what you mean. I kind of like this new wave better. Because for me, like, I like my stuff to be super minimal.
You do, yeah.
And I like it to be, like, monochromatic.
Right. Yeah.
So I like this decision because, like, I don't mind this. I'm like, it's got, like, a little splash of color just under the analog, but I'm not going to, it's not, like, coming at me from, like, 20 feet away.
Yeah.
I think it's a, like, nice, subtle, like, high-tech, mature look.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they'll do all different colors
for
the Joy-Cons so that you can do the whole same customization thing that, I think a lot of people are into.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, mine are both, red, or mine are both, purple or whatever. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing like what variants come out for this thing at some point. Like, I'm like overwhelmingly excited about this. This is like the most I've been. I was telling you earlier, it's like the most excited I've been for a console launch since the PlayStation 2.
Yep.
I remember standing outside of Best Buy, sitting on the sidewalk in a line like a jerk at like midnight, waiting for the PlayStation 2 launch, and getting my copy of Orphan Scion of Sorcery, and like because the console had the worst launch.
Well, it had a run that is still unrivaled. The Switch came pretty close for total sales, but that was quite a run Sony had with the PS2.
This is insane. Like everything. So first, like, let me just ask you right off the bat: are you happy with the information that we now know about the Switch 2?
I mean, a lot of it I'm pretty happy about. It seems like spec-wise, we're looking at something in the power range of like a PS4 Pro or a Series X, something around those lines maybe, which is to be expected. Nintendo is usually a little bit less on, the horsepower. But they know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, Tears of the Kingdom shouldn't have
Gorgeous.
run on anything,
Yeah.
and they got it to run on a Switch, which was insane. So I'm not too worried about that because they know what to do with their hardware.
Yeah.
As far as we can say, officially, we don't really know too much. That launch trailer was like a minute and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
So all we see is the new design, bigger screen. The new kickstand looks cool.
Yep.
I like that kickstand design.
Joy-Con drift thing I passed because it's like an analog. Analog. The analog sticks are like refined, so there's not going to be any issues with drift anymore. Like they brought it back to like mechanical basics.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
mean, they could always just do a Hall effect, which I don't know why in 2024 none of these people can do a Hall effect controller when Sega did one in like when the Saturn came out.
Yeah.
And those never drift ever.
Yeah.
Like I have Dreamcast controllers I can pull off the shelf, they won't drift. But other than that, I'm glad that they're improving that. But again, they could have went a little bit more. The screen, do we know if that's going to be non-OLED at this point?
I think as far as like the rumor mill is going, is it's not OLED.
That's another thing that I'm not happy about.
See, like, I personally don't care as much
Yeah.
about that because I don't do as much handheld on it.
And I'm the exact,
You handheld it more.
almost 95%, I would say, is handheld.
Yeah.
And I love,
That's
like, I
fair.
got the Zelda OLED when when that came out, and like I love it.
Yeah, that
So-
thing is beautiful. There is a noticeable difference.
There,
between the
oh
screens.
yeah, it's incredible.
great.
I think I brought this up on the podcast before, but I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, and you get the black screen with just the little loading thing. When it first happened on the OLED, I thought it was broken because it just went straight black, not the green, gray, black that you're used to with a lot of these handhelds. So that feels like a step backwards. I know that within like a year they'll come out with some special edition
It's
OLED.
an excuse. Yep.
And just as like, some horrible relationships, abusive relationships, you just take it
Yep.
and shell out the $300 or $400 for it because I want it. But they got to make money. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a classic move. Like
Yeah,
you're
it's
getting almost
classic.
everything
Yeah.
you want.
Yep.
I personally think that's totally forgivable. I think that's acceptable because they are giving us backwards compatibility with the entire physical Switch library.
Isn't it also the your Switch store as well? Have we
Yes,
heard
yeah,
of that?
like that's going to carry over as well. Like so,
Yeah.
your Nintendo Switch store stuff is going to carry over as
So
well.
that's huge.
That is huge.
That's massive. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, all my biggest thing this entire time was, all Nintendo had to do was give me backwards compatibility. I didn't give a shit about anything else.
Right.
All I cared about was backwards compatibility, and
Yeah.
I have that. And then, like you were saying, the specs are like somewhere around like a PS4 Pro.
Yep.
That's like, I can't wait to see what they create with that much power because, as you said, like they managed to do so many amazing things with what they have,
Right.
and just like, what are they gonna? What are their first party games gonna look like? They're gonna be amazing.
Right. Yeah.
Graphically, Nintendo has always looked amazing graphically, regardless of what the console's output is.
Oh yeah, and I feel like a lot of it does stand the test of time a lot
Yeah.
more than some of their competitors. Like if you look at the contemporaries of like a Wind Waker, for example, like most of those games look on the PlayStation or Xbox look absolutely horrible nowadays. But Wind Waker still looks amazing. Like even though people at the time were hating on the whole cell shading and everything else, like it aged well.
Yes.
And I feel like the same thing with Breath of the Wild. That game is going to age well. You could play that game in 20 years and still be blown away by the art direction of it,
Yeah.
which I feel like is more where things should be going graphics wise than like hyper realistic and everything else. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like gamers care a lot more about the style, art style, than they do about like, oh, this has 10 million polygons and this one has 13 million.
Yeah.
It's we've reached a point where that doesn't matter as much as it used to.
And it's not even getting pushed as much as it used to. Like
No.
there used to be like a discernible difference between like I feel like we're gonna notice a more of a graphical difference between the Switch and the Switch 2 than we have like the PS3 to the PS5.
Yeah, probably.
Like I feel like the console jumps haven't been as like important graphically lately. The PS5, that whole PS5 Pro thing they're doing now, it's like nobody cares.
yeah.
Nobody cares. Nobody
No.
cares about a little extra ray tracing or
Right.
like it doesn't matter. Like it's not looking that much better.
No, and a lot of the stuff with Microsoft really kind of threw a wrench in everything, where they said you had to develop for the S and the X at the
Yeah.
same time. So a lot of those games aren't going to push the limits of the X, and if they're doing, PlayStation at the same time, they're not going to say, "Hey, we're going to have our PlayStation version be 40% better than our X version." They're
Yeah.
just going to make a console port that more or less runs pretty well on all of them.
Yeah, and the overlap, the console overlap has been one of the biggest setbacks to gaming this entire console
Oh
generation.
yeah, it's been bad.
Yeah, there's the only system I can think of that has taken advantage of graphical power is the PS5. The Xbox has been just a bust this
Right.
entire generation.
Yeah.
It's been a bust. It's been
Well,
a
they've been
waste.
hamstrung by
Yeah.
that whole,
Yeah.
Microsoft telling developers we need a version that runs on both,
Yeah.
which is it's silly.
And Sony's just cranking out like the Spider-Man games look amazing,
Yep.
like Ratchet and Clank looks amazing, like Astrobot is
Yeah.
gorgeous. Like every game that Sony keeps putting out seems to be like utilizing the power of the console
Right.
and making like noticeable, leaps forward. But
Yep.
the Xbox has just like stifled itself and just been kind of it's that console's been like DOA, I feel, since it hit.
They made some bad decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not that PlayStation has done much for themselves. Part of it was COVID related with chip shortages and everything. But honestly, the biggest difference I've felt going PS4 to PS5 is I like the controller slightly better.
Yep.
And the load times
Yeah.
are, going from old hard drives to solid state, the load time is ridiculous. But graphics wise, I don't, notice much of a difference.
Yeah, it's not as big a not like
not
as
huge.
big a jump.
Right.
Like PS2 to PS3 was noticeable.
Yeah.
And I feel like it kind of just stopped after that, and it's been like slow. It's been like minor at best, like since then.
Right.
And that's like what 15, 20 years of gaming, honestly.
Yep.
Like we've seen such little leaps in 20 years that like I'm not looking for much more as far as that goes. So
Right.
the thing that has me most excited about this new system for the Nintendo is like the software.
Yeah.
Nintendo always has amazing software.
They do. Yeah.
So seeing what they're going to do now, like with 15-year-old hardware,
Right.
is going to be more impressive than what we're seeing now in 2024 with
Yeah.
the most optimized hardware, I feel.
Well, they also seem to be always more focused on players having fun
Yeah.
than anything else. A lot of, and I've talked about this so many times, that I hate games that are movie-like and cutscenes and everything else, and it's like, I just don't care. That's not the spectacle to me. The spectacle is the gameplay. And even games that I was we recently talked about Echoes of Wisdom that we both played, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I still think it's a decent game. It played well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nintendo is always on point with that stuff. I am a little bit worried about what the launch titles are going to look like.
That's a big mystery right now that
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to... I'm sure there's going to be more leaks between now and then.
Yeah.
But as of right now, the only thing we know is there's going to be a new Mario Kart.
But that's the thing, though. They showed Mario Kart. Did
Yeah.
they say it was going to be a new one, or are we just getting Mario Kart 8?
The fact that nobody has been like, this is a track for Mario Kart 8, I think it means we're getting a new Mario Kart. The karts look different. So, like, I think, the character models are different. I think
Yeah.
there's enough, like, information that leads us to show that. Also, like, in one of the... in that trailer, it shows a starting lineup of 24 slots for cars.
Okay.
So it's definitely a new Mario Kart,
Yeah.
but like what that looks like, we don't know yet. But the fact that like we don't know what they're coming out of the launch gate with, like I personally think that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a launch title.
I think, yeah, that's a pretty good
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at the difference between the Metroid Prime remaster and the trailer, again, looking at the newest trailer for Metroid Prime 4, I'm like, that doesn't seem like it's the same hardware. Metroid Prime remaster is a gorgeous game, but it's not that gorgeous a game as the screens that we've seen in Metroid Prime 4.
Right.
So I feel like with the amount of time that's been in development, the amount of delays it's seen, I feel like it's a smart move for them to just throw that out as a launch title for this console and just get it out there and give the fans what they want. And I feel like that would be a smart play.
Do you think they'll do a dual release, Switch and Switch 2, or do you think it's going to be because as much as I love Metroid, and we've talked Metroid all the time. I don't know if that's a console seller.
I don't know that it's a console seller, but I also think that's why we're seeing the Mario Kart stuff. I think,
But to go back to Mario Kart a little bit, like,
yeah.
what else can you do with Mario Kart now
Yeah.
that hasn't been done with Mario Kart 8?
You can put a 9 on in the box and and just go from there. I mean more people playing it online.
Yeah.
I guess voice chat. I
That's
think
very anti-Nintendo, though.
yeah, but
Having
the rumor is again like there's like all this stuff is going to be like built in. Again, this is purely speculation at this
Right.
point.
Yep.
But I feel like dedicated like online hardware with Mario Kart, that's enough to sell it.
Yeah,
Again,
maybe.
I feel like with the Switch 2, it's going to be like these minor like gets you receive. It's like, oh, now you have a real online experience. We have built-in voice chat.
Right.
You don't have to link up to a stupid app on your phone. Or
Yeah.
I think that alone is going to be enough to sell another Mario Kart. Like I will buy another Mario Kart.
I mean, you and I, yes, we're
Yeah.
obviously going to be day one adopters
Yeah.
of the Switch 2 and everything. But that's what worries me about it, because when the Switch launched, you had Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild, that game was absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought I'd see a Zelda game like that. And, you know, I'm a old jaded guy as you are.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really get that whole, you know, feeling of awe very often anymore. And the
No.
fact that they were able to provoke that with that game and then Tears, like, and it's been, you know, a while since we've seen a 3D Zelda or a 3D Mario. So I don't know, like, could they do sort of the same thing where they're looking at like an October Mario release to push for
Yeah.
the holiday season
I think that's
or
what's gonna
something like
happen.
that, you know?
Yeah.
But it just feels like without the Zelda or something, you know, that big, which, I mean, what else do you, like, they had Smash,
Yep.
which came out soon after, if not a launch title. They had Zelda. Like, they had a lot of heavy hitters lined up for the Switch after the failure of the Wii U.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're just going to kind of coast into the Switch 2 and just release things as they go, or if they're going to try to recreate that sort of like, you know,
Yeah. I
big
think
launch.
I wouldn't be surprised to see like them go all in on this one, because you know, like you were saying, like the failure of the Wii U was a big setback, and
Right.
then they just knocked it out of the park with the Switch.
Yeah.
And to kind of to touch on your question, I think about like the dual release for like Metroid Prime and stuff. It's like I've never seen Nintendo do a generational gap like for software. They always kind of like here's
Breath of the Wild.
Did they have a dual release for Breath of the Wild?
Yep.
What else was that on?
It was on Wii U.
Was it really?
Yep.
I did
Yeah,
not
it was
know that.
originally designed so I'm such a Zelda nerd. The tablet in Breath of the Wild is the Wii U tablet, which is different in Tears of the Kingdom. It's the Switch.
Yeah.
And it was originally designed so that you could play with that as your inventory screen while you're playing Breath of the Wild.
Huh.
They took that feature out because the Switch was coming out and they didn't want the Wii U version to have features that the Switch version didn't have.
Huh.
But yeah, it was a dual release.
Interesting. I did
Yeah.
not. Is that the only game they've ever done a dual release on?
That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there, if I maybe Metroid Prime will get that, but I honestly don't know if they're gonna. Like you said, it's not like a system seller, so why not just throw it
on
onto the new one?
Yeah.
And help push it even more because they know the people who are really going to want it. It's for the people who wanted it, it's a system seller. Like
Right.
I would buy it exclusively for that. But as far as like, I think this is the 40th year of Mario.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna see. It wouldn't surprise me to see another 3D Mario. It's been like 7 or 8 years since
Been a
Odyssey.
long time, yeah.
So they're due another one. It makes sense to drop one on the new system. And definitely the Mario Kart, I think, is definitely going to be if not a title launch, like maybe they switch that up.
It's got to be. I mean, if they put that as the
Yeah.
main screen, it's either going to be a title launch or it's going to be an updated. It's going to be one of the ones
Yeah.
that are. I could see them doing some stuff where
Maybe do
it's
like a Mario Kart bundle switch.
right, something
Yeah.
like that. But I could see them doing some stuff where it's almost like, remember the old expansion pack for 64?
Yep.
That kind of upgraded some of the games. You didn't need it you only needed it for Donkey Kong and
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark it just enhanced it.
Oh, okay.
So you could play Perfect Dark without it.
Oh, that's right. The ones you
Yeah.
needed it for.
So there were some that you needed it, which was Majora's Mask and Donkey Kong.
Doom 64 as well, I think.
Was it?
I think so,
I thought
yeah.
it was only those two.
Yeah.
But I know that there's a short list that also it enhanced it. And Perfect Dark was one of those ones. So I could see them doing something like the new Metroid is on Switch 1, but it's better on Switch. You know, the water graphics or whatever are going to look better on the Switch 2 version.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, it would be, because, you know, as old and, you know, decrepit as we are, there are a lot of children who enjoy the Nintendo Switch as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it'd be cool if they could be playing the new Mario Kart with their, you know, there's always that one kid on the block who has the newest stuff the first day, and you know you're gonna have to wait till Christmas. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, when this comes out.
Yep.
Day one. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll pay $1,000 for one of those. I'll buy a.
I won't pay $1,000.
It's an online scumbag.
Well, the other thing that Nintendo is great at, and we saw this with a lot of the special edition Switches that came out, is they just flood the market.
Yeah.
So when the Switch 2 comes out, you know, don't be expecting like a PS5 launch where you're paying $1,000, $1,200 from some scalper. You're gonna be able to walk into Walmart or Target, and there's gonna be a giant display of these things.
Yeah, like, the only thing they were bad about with that was their wireless controllers, their wireless retro controllers.
Those are hard to find.
Yeah, and that was actually that was you had some scalpers getting crazy money for those at one point.
I think they just underestimated how many people would actually want them, but I think they also overestimate how comfortable Switch Joy-Cons are, because for, you know, our hands, you know, man-sized hands, they are not comfortable at all.
No, and that's why one of the things that has me excited about the new one is the bigger like grip, the bigger handles.
Yeah.
You know, the redone like the Z button on that thing inside is like a nightmare for me, because I can't grab. I got like palm basketballs. I'm like having a hard time with that little thing.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
Yep.
But yeah, dude, like this thing is like, I'm like ecstatic for this. Like the fact that it's gonna play, it says like most of the library.
Right.
So some exceptions apply. I think that's gonna relate to things that use like the sensor in the current Switch, like maybe that weird like cardboard box thing that they made.
Right.
I think anything that has that, because it's not gonna have that sensor in it.
Yep.
So I think like weird gimmicky games won't work. But like aside from that, like everything is supposed to work. You just plug it in and it works, which is all I want. I have like a 70+ Switch library, physical games at this point.
Yeah.
So the fact that I can get rid of that old console and just put in a new console and you pop those games in is like, that's all I asked for.
Yeah.
And I'm getting it. And the fact that we're going to have that much more horsepower on us, I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
The Switch is
one of the best consoles.
One thing that's going to be annoying for you, and I know it already, is one of the leaks said that the size of the boxes is going to be slightly bigger.
No, that's going to drive my OCD, yeah, that is going to be weird for me.
That's going to be annoying when you're putting them on the bookshelf and it's...
yeah, especially if they're like, if they come out that much farther, that's going to be weird.
I think it's slightly taller and slightly wider is what they're already saying, so...
I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things is like physical like media, is like the boxes. I love that stuff. The artwork, like just being able to open them up. I'm like over the fucking moon waiting for this thing. I cannot wait for this thing. I'm like a little kid just waiting for Christmas on this thing. It's the most excited I've been about video game news in such a long time. Like the Switch is easy. It's my number 2 console ever.
Yep.
Super Nintendo being my favorite. If you watch the show, it's not a surprise.
It's
Super
hard to
Nintendo
top.
Rules.
Hard to top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Switch has just been the best for playing games from the past and games from the present. You get like you get crazy indie games that you can only get on like PC.
Yep.
You get like weird modern games. Like it's just been like, it's just had the best library that I can imagine since the Super Nintendo. I've never felt as free on a console as I have with the Switch. You know, with the PS5 and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, I'm going to get my Ratchets, I'm going to get my Spider-Mans, I'm going to get my God of War. And then anything else, I'm looking at the Switch.
Right.
Like anything else. Like anything I know that it can handle, that's what I want to get it on. Because I can take it with me anywhere I go. I just pop it in a bag and it comes with me.
Right.
Hook it up to a TV there.
Yep.
That versatility has made this such an invaluable console to me. I've taken it on the road when I'm like doing business trips.
Oh yeah.
Like it's the best. I love the Switch so much.
Yeah, I mean, whenever a big Switch title comes out, I'm hiding in that corner when you walk in, like listening for the door chime so that I can help people. Like, there wasn't much work getting done when Tears of the Kingdom came out.
No.
That's for sure.
I remember you just be over in the corner, come in and just poke up a head after
Yep.
a while angrily, interrupting you gaming.
Yeah, I'm trying to beat this. Like, come on. Yeah, but I mean, I'm pumped with the backwards compatibility. Just because, like you said, there are so many games. Like, I remember Hollow Knight, which, again, I talk about all the time. I love Hollow Knight.
All night rules.
I got Hollow Knight for free on my PS4 as one of the PS4 extra games, right? Played like 10 hours of it, and then I was like, I would really, really, really love to have this on the Switch. And I paid $15 just to put it on the Switch. But there's so many games that have happened like that where I either start playing it on PC or start playing it on PlayStation. I'm like, this is like, I would love to have this on the Switch, and I do it. Like, and there's so many indie games that I played over the past, how long has this thing been out? Almost 10 years
Almost
now?
10 years, yeah. I think 8 years, 8,
Yeah.
9 years, yeah.
That I've had so much fun with it, and I'm so glad that, like, I can, download Hollow Knight day one and play through it on the Switch too if I want.
Yeah. I think the biggest, like, asset to Nintendo with this, too, is, like, for me, like, I think that the Super Nintendo was the last great Nintendo console. The 64, my thoughts on the 64.
We've gone through it, yeah.
Then you had the GameCube, which was like there was some good games on it.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, like, you didn't have like a crazy library.
No.
Then you had the Wii, which I thought was garbage. The Wii U, which I never even owned a Wii U because I hated the Wii so much.
Yep.
And then this thing comes out, and it's like, the Wii U was like, at least there was like it was a good idea there. The Wii U gave us the Switch, like the idea of what it was meant to be.
Well, I feel like they were still trying to figure out what they were doing.
And yeah,
Because there were some games on the Wii U where it was, oh, someone else needs the TV, you can play on your Wii U. But there were other games where it was like, that's your inventory or your map or whatnot, and you needed the TV. So they were still trying to figure that whole thing out. And they were also still in the whole dual screen, DS, 3DS era, which great
amazing consoles, yeah,
on their own right. But I feel like for a very long time until the Switch, the handheld was they were always killing in the handheld department. Like they never missed.
Never, yeah. They've always been handheld gods.
Game Boy Micro.
Oh yeah.
It
was gimmicky.
Yeah, that's arthritis. But
that
other
a
than
gimmick
that,
release, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the hand, like just marrying the idea of taking what you're good at and excelling at. Like, they've always just had the best handhelds. No one has been able to touch handhelds like they have. Nobody.
No
Everybody fails.
Yeah.
Everybody fails except them.
Yeah, I mean, PlayStation Portable is the only other one that really, for a while, was even viable.
Yeah, and that was like still like, I had one of those.
Yeah.
And I never loved it. I got rid of it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't really anything to play on it, and it was just kind of like, it was a great piece of tech, and it was beautiful. It was just like...
It was also a product of its time, though. Like, you could watch movies, which would be cool if you're a high school kid or a middle school kid or, even as a young adult, you're on the train every day. That's pretty cool, especially for the time when there's not, smartphones and internet and everything now.
Yeah.
But even now, if you show a kid walks in the store a PSP, they're like, what's so special about this? I can do this on my cell phone.
Yeah.
So... it's one of those things. And then they came out with the Vita, which I liked a lot, again, as a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
But...
it had the same problems as the PSP.
Worse problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had the same problems, but even, more so.
Yeah. It was a strange piece of tech. And the fact that, like, they were doing that Sony thing where Sony likes to dominating imprint on, like, a piece of media where it's like, for a while with Sony cameras, you could only use Sony memory cards that were specifically made. They had a specific kind of card for it.
Yep.
Or like with the PSP, where it's like they had the UMDs and stuff. It's like they always wanted some sort of like media exclusivity that gave them like a monopoly on it.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that Nintendo is just been all about the hardware.
Yeah.
They're all about the hardware. They're all about the software, and it's all about the gaming experience. It
Well,
wasn't
that's the
about
thing, yeah.
a bunch of other nonsense.
I mean, the PS3, one of the big draws was Blu-ray. Sony is this giant conglomerate, and they're saying, we can sell these at a loss.
That's a weird
you know?
backwards though. Like
Yeah.
they were the ones who pioneered DVD with the PS2.
Yep.
And then Blu-ray with the You are
Right.
correct. Yeah.
So
it's weird. It's like the opposite for them.
Yeah. They can push it out and they say, we have all these other tentacles out there. Nintendo is laser focused on just gaming. They're just a gaming company. This is the gaming branch of Sony. So they could throw out something like UMDs, and if it becomes the next Blu-ray, good. If it doesn't, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll sell some more TVs. But Nintendo, it's like they have to, they have to win. And after the Wii, which was a success, but to a lot of us more serious gamers felt like a letdown.
Yeah.
And then the Wii U, which was a failure, the Switch kind of, had to be good. Otherwise, they were kind of sunk, really.
Yeah.
Like it's a cutthroat business. No, Sega's not making consoles anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Sega's done.
And they haven't for, most of our listeners' lifetimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true.
So, I mean, that's what blew me away with the Switch is just how good it was. It was, kind of like you said, as a home console, it was the first one that wasn't slightly, since Super Nintendo, like N64 had a weird controller.
Mm-hmm.
GameCube had the mini disc. It couldn't play music. It couldn't do all this other stuff that every console at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Less weird, but still weird.
Yep.
Yeah. And, that was the time where your gaming console was becoming, a multimedia sort of thing.
Yep.
I mean, the Wii, you had to have a disc to play Netflix on. And then they took the Netflix app off of it, even if you had the disc. So it was Nintendo being in that weird sort of, I don't know. It was, I guess they were still hyper focused on the games, which I guess is a good long-term strategy.
Yeah.
But at that time, I felt like GameCube was just falling so far behind PS2 and Xbox.
Yeah, except visually. Like the GameCube, I think was the last time they kind of went head-to-head in a generation. I feel like power-wise, like there were GameCube games I thought that looked way better like on the GameCube than the PS2 or the Xbox.
Right.
They had it just had like a really good ability to render textures and GameCube games aged really well.
Yeah, they did.
But like you were saying, like I think they were just still trying to figure out what the hell they were doing, and it seems like adopting the best parts of like your handheld business, and then it's like you're basically making a handheld that just hooks up to a TV.
Right.
It's the smartest play, and the fact that like people like Steam have and the Steam Deck are just rip-offs of the Switch.
Right. And the Steam Deck is selling like hotcakes.
Oh yeah, I want a Steam Deck. I need to get one of those.
And they're even coming out with I've heard rumors of like a new PSP that Sony is going to be coming out with.
Huh.
Yeah. But I mean, even Sony has tried to do the whole Portal thing, which, I did the whole PS Vita as like a portable PS4 and it worked fine. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to pay $500 for it like they're asking for the Portal. So
yeah, the new one that lets you play PS5.
Yeah, it lets you stream PS5. It's a PS5 controller with a screen in the middle,
which is awesome when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, I have no interest in that whatsoever.
No.
And that it's weird because it's like I could play Baldur's Gate 3 on that.
Yep.
We could play Helldivers on
that. Oh yeah.
Why would you not want that?
Right.
Just to try to figure out my own thought process and why I don't want that. It might be just because for graphics that are that complex and visuals that marry themselves to a TV much better than they do a handheld, I don't want to play it on a screen that small. I like the beauty about like most of the stuff on the Switch is that it's more suited towards that screen.
Yeah.
Like I can play Breath of the Wild on there just fine.
Right.
Like it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I think another one of my issues with the PlayStation 1 is I can plug a DualShock 5 into my crappy work laptop and I can stream my PlayStation 5 from home using remote. I can do it on my phone if I use, what do they call those? What are those things? The backbones?
That's I didn't even know that. That's the thing. You can play your PS5 on your phone.
Yeah, you can remote app and it has like touchscreen, but
That's cool.
there's a third party company. I think they're called Backbone. What they do is they have a controller that stretches to fit your particular phone, and it has the PlayStation or Xbox buttons. Yeah, so you can do that for those things cost like $80 to $100. But I have DualShock 5s here. I can legit plug one into my laptop and play on my $200 refurbished work laptop.
That's pretty cool.
So why am I going to spend $500 for a Sony peripheral when I can do that with things I already have for
Yeah.
much cheaper? you
That's
know?
interesting. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know those. It's weird how those just. I didn't even know that existed.
Oh yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. There's been a couple times I've played Helldivers with you, and I've been like, here.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's cool, but it's also like, well, I can do that already. Why am I going to pay? Just so I can have almost a worse experience using
That's interesting.
the PlayStation Portal. Yeah.
Huh. One of the things when we were talking about like the handheld stuff too, and like when we were talking about the Steam Deck, one of the things that I'm hearing rumors of with the Switch 2 that has me interested is like Nvidia is a big part of the Switch 2.
Yep.
That's what's doing the chipset. And rumor has it it's pushing that new Nvidia AI thing that is making it so games with like higher specs can be played at their max specs on the Switch 2
Right.
using like that crazy new Nvidia technology.
Yep.
So that's pretty rad that if you can have something with the power of like a PS4 Pro and you're still getting like
Even better
PC
than-
Ultra
right.
settings on it,
Yeah.
that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see like one if that's true,
Yep.
which I can't imagine it won't be because Nvidia loves to push out their new toys.
Right.
I'm curious to see like how that works and how well it works.
Yeah. I'd like to see how well it works because I honestly, anything AI, I don't understand how it works.
Yeah.
Like whatever it's doing in there to, optimize, micro optimize frame by frame to make it look better. If it works, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Because then the Switch 2 will be even more powerful than we're already thinking it's going to be.
Yeah.
And just from their track record with the Switch, plus the boost in hardware, I'm already optimistic about what we're going to see from first-party Nintendo.
That also seems like a weirdly overly tech heavy thing for Nintendo to be doing because
Yeah.
Nintendo is traditionally not, like you said, they're not traditionally like the guys going after the powerhouse.
They're not like
console.
cutting edge usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems interesting if they're kind of taking like a leap forward as far as that goes because I don't think anybody else is doing that yet. I've heard like talk of it, but I don't know that anyone else is doing that. So if they're the first company to come out in the gaming market and offer this, and if they have some sort of like exclusivity to it, that would be kind of neat too.
I don't know if they'll have exclusivity. I mean, Nvidia over the past few years has become such a juggernaut that I'm sure that they can put whatever they want into whatever they want.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
when's the PS6 going to come out? That's the thing is when are you next going to have, the next Xbox or the next PlayStation that's going to use a new Nvidia chipset?
Yeah.
They were already pushing out the PS5 Pro, so that's already off the table.
Yeah.
It's got to be whenever the next, new one comes out, and that's years down the line at this point. So
It's wild how little I care about the next generation of consoles too. I was thinking
Yeah.
about that like this. I don't want to say that this generation has been a bust because there have been like some amazing games.
There have.
On the PS5
Yeah.
especially. But I feel like it's harder to care. I don't know why. It's just like I feel like with the move like with the PS5 Pro, which I just feel like was such a scummy move by Sony.
Yep.
I mean, I get why they're doing it. It's kind of like a midlife recycle or refresh to push more power because PCs do it all the time.
Yep.
But like I also don't feel like there's really been anything that's pushing the PS5 to be this powerhouse like it was back in the day.
Well, I feel like it all stems from the COVID-related rollout issues.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big PlayStation person. I had a PS4. I had, even going back with all the other ones, obviously I had those. But I had a PS4. I bought a PS4 Pro. Can't count how many DualShock 4s I bought over the years because of the, stick drift and breaking down and everything.
Yeah.
But huge PlayStation person. And I wasn't going to pay scalping prices for the new console. And I feel like a lot of people who were big gamers felt the same way, you know? Like, why am I going to pay 2-3 times what I should for something that is, an upgrade, but it doesn't feel like, you said, a new console? Like I've mentioned before, controller change, I like it. It's nice. I prefer the new controller, but it's basically the same as the DualShock 4. It's very similar.
Yep.
And the gameplay-wise and everything else, UI-wise even is all very similar to the PS4.
Yeah.
It feels like an upgrade, not a new console.
Yeah.
And I feel like consoles are just getting so good that that's all they're ever going to feel like anymore.
Yeah, and I feel like even with and it's weird to me. I don't know why Nintendo gets a pass with the Switch 2, because essentially it's the same thing. But I think it's the fact that they're thoughtful enough to include the backwards compatibility with the Switch and
Yep.
give like the gamers like a little something they want. But again, like the PS5 did that, the
Yep.
Xbox did that. But for some reason, it just feels more exciting, and I think it just comes down again to the software. I
Yep.
think that's really what it is. It's just the software. Like you're gonna get like your Zeldas. You're gonna get your Metroids, your Mario's, your Donkey Kongs. Like those are those time tested those characters and games that like it doesn't matter what console it is. Those are always gonna be good.
Yeah, but I also feel like one of the things that is kind of helping Nintendo being so far behind hardware-wise is that the Switch, if you look at the hardware of the Switch right now compared to your cell phone, is laughable.
Yeah.
It's laughable,
Yeah.
and the fact that they were able to get, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Wonder, all these really good-looking games out of such, pardon my French, shitty fucking hardware,
Yeah.
having them on something that's not quite up to par, but still a lot better
Yeah.
than what they were using, that's exciting. Because I've already seen what, a PS5 can do. And I've already seen what Nintendo can do on basically a shitty old Android that you would give a 2-year-old to shut them up at a family party, that you don't care if they break. That's how bad the hardware is in the Switch at this point.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's kind of how bad it was when it came out. It was a little disappointing hardware-wise,
Yeah.
but they worked magic with it.
Yeah.
So giving them that much more firepower, it's just going to be like, what are you guys going to cook up with? Like, you guys already pulled off miracles. And,
Yeah.
that's going to be the hardest part, I think, with the Switch
Is this new software?
is just keeping things, that level of excellence that we've been,
Even if it was just the same roadmap they followed, like the fact that I have all of my Contras, like I have the Contra collection, the Castlevania Advance collection,
Yep.
the Castlevania collection. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
all of these games with all of this history from previous consoles playing perfectly on this one handheld device that I can
Yep.
take with me anywhere, hook up to a TV, hook up peripherals designed specifically to play with it, even on the original controllers.
Yep.
Like, dude, like the fact that I'm gonna just be able to take all those and throw it into this new system, carry over my digital code to my login,
Yep.
all my stuff will just be able to download it again. I don't care about much else. Like,
Yeah.
just keep releasing games that you would be normally doing anyway. Keep bringing over those indie games. Just keep doing exactly what you did with the Switch, and I will be the happiest person.
Well, it's also a good, optimistic sort of thing that they're not ending the Switch online shop and it's becoming, it's going to be the Switch 2 online shop or
Yeah.
Nintendo online. Because as old as we are, we've gone through the Xbox 360 store shutting down,
Yeah.
PS3 store shutting down, the Wii, the DS, all of these stores shutting down. And then if you didn't have access or you didn't download it, you can't re-download it,
Yeah.
all this other stuff. And that kills a lot of stuff because even though we have all the hardware here to play it, a lot of that DLC is just gone.
God, yeah.
It's lost media at this point unless, start sailing the high seas.
Have you ever considered piracy?
So it is nice to see Nintendo doing that. And I hope Microsoft and Sony and, everybody else does that going forward. Kind of like Steam,
Yeah.
Steam is just all your games are there. Doesn't matter if you bought a new PC, whatnot. I hope Nintendo continues with that where it's like you have, your lifelong Nintendo eShop, versus because that was a horrible feeling.
It was
whenever these
yeah.
went offline.
And I think they caught a lot of flack for that. They caught a lot of flack for the 3DS shop closing, and the fact that there was no way to just carry over these things that you've purchased 2 or 3 times. Like I had purchased so many games 2 or 3 times, going from handheld to handheld,
Yep.
console to console.
Oh yeah.
And it was so frustrating, and like part of me, that's why I'm so adamant about physical media these days.
Right.
And the fact that I can take all of my Switch one games that I've managed to make a crazy collection out of,
Yep.
just carry it right over to the next one.
Right.
And then and if the next system after that isn't compatible, that's okay. I'll keep the Switch 2 for that. And the fact that I've gotten 2 generations worth of games
Yep.
on one console is enough of a reason to keep that console.
Well, I hope the eShop continues on.
I hope so too, yeah.
I can forgive if the cartridge, interface or whatnot, they figure out a better way of doing things,
Yeah.
and it's no longer economically viable to build in, kind of like with PS3, they took out the PS2 emulation. Like, I'm cool with that eventually happening, but the online really like grinds my gears with a lot of these
Yeah.
things. So I hope they are setting like some sort of precedent where it's like moving forward, Switch 7 or whatever comes out, you're still going to be able to
Nintendo
download
Store.
and play through your eShop.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, the Nintendo shop is honestly like their online experience right now, aside from playing with other people, is fantastic. Their store setup is great. Like it's
Yeah.
so easy to get in there, make
Yep.
favorites lists, and access everything.
Plus just what you have access to.
Yeah,
Even like
it's
the
wild.
the subscription model they have for
Yeah.
all the retro stuff
$20 a year, dude.
is amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
we
think
were-
it's 50 now actually with the everything. But even
With
then, you're
every-
getting like 5 consoles
Right.
for $50 a year and online play.
Yep.
That's better than anything any of the other competitors give out currently.
Oh yeah, or like we were talking with a customer earlier in the store about emulation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, Nintendo does it so well that that's like the most user-friendly way to even go about playing a lot of these old games.
Yeah, the retro games, especially, I went down that rabbit hole last year, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I tried to hook up a retro console to my 77-inch OLED and it looked terrible. It was
Yep.
unplayably bad.
Yep.
And then I can just pop on the Switch and play that same retro game on that TV, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it's meant to scale perfectly with the HD format. It's all cleaned up. It's just gorgeous. It makes a compelling argument for playing old classic games on a modern setup. And-
Yeah, it's not as good as a CRT though.
Oh, CRT still. I still have my CRT. I play all my classics on my CRT.
Yeah.
But sometimes like those old games look really beautiful. Like the retro games look great on a crisp screen. Like like your Hollow Knights.
They
or
do a
something like that. Yeah.
great way of doing it. And
Yeah.
a lot of the newer games that go with the sort of lo-fi or retro Hyperlight Drifter sort of games, they look incredible on
Yeah.
the new TVs. But it's a retro store. We gotta
absolutely,
we gotta
man.
push some product. The only way you can 100% play it the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. No, I totally.
Get
agree.
yourself a CRT. When you turn it on, you hear that like weird humming that like sort of vibrates through your body
Yeah.
for some reason. Yeah, that's how you got to do it.
The best thing too is that's like owning antiquity at this point.
Oh yeah,
My CRT, when I first bought it, I was calling up local shops just to see if like they even serviced them in case something happened. And everyone's like, "Oh, I think I know a guy from like," and then getting like weird
yeah.
I know a guy, and like here's his number, and you call this guy, he's like, "Oh, I used to," and it's like this is like you get into like I had a conversation with a guy for like a half hour about how he used to service CRTs and
Oh, yeah.
like his whole life story. It was this bizarre.
they're
thing.
dangerous.
Oh, they're terrifying.
They are terrifying. Yeah,
Literally like can kill you.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, those capacitors just store
Yeah.
electricity.
yeah.
It's crazy.
You better make sure that's grounded when you
Yeah.
discharge that
I've
electricity.
I've seen
'cause-
some stuff.
Yeah, it is scary. You hit the get the screwdriver in there, and you feel that little pop.
Yeah.
and you're like, that could have went right into my brainstem.
Those are terrifying.
Yeah. But yeah, nobody works on them anymore.
No, nobody does.
Yeah.
It's a weird, archaic piece of technology, and
Yeah.
like I don't know, man. Like gaming, like I'm as much as I've gone down that rabbit hole with classic gaming, and like looking at my collection, like just the other night even, and like how I've got like those like repro Nintendo boxes and stuff,
Yep.
and just looking at a complete collection with like manuals in it, and it just looking through it and getting that like feeling, that old feeling of like this is something tangible, and I can
Yeah.
hold it, and I can like look at it, and there's all this history, and it elicits a feeling. And I think that Nintendo is one of the only companies now that can still do that to me. Like they
Yeah.
still elicit like that childlike sense of wonder when
Yep.
it comes to gaming. They're the
Oh, yeah.
only company that makes me give a shit about gaming anymore. And that's so strange given how many video games I play and how many, like, I have every console. I love
Yep.
gaming.
Yeah.
And they're still the only ones who get me, like, giddy.
I mean, it's got to be like a top-down directive from Nintendo that it's like, we're here to provoke that joy from people.
Yeah.
Where a lot of gaming has become, I mean, gaming's bigger than movies now.
Yeah.
It's such a huge money-making thing that there's, you're a huge movie guy,
Yeah.
obviously. So there's some directors who are in it for the money. There's the Michael Bays and everything, and just putting asses in seats. And then there's people who, live and die by it, and you can tell the difference as a movie person. And as a gaming person, it's the same thing. You can tell when, this is like the newest hero shooter cash grab that, they just...
Concord.
Well, they didn't grab the cash too well.
Sure
But
didn't.
they missed out on that. But yeah, I mean, you boot up even, something like Mario Wonder, and you're like, whoever made this game put so much love in it.
Yeah.
Like, they really did. They probably went to work every day, like, tired as anything, crunching on it. But every moment they were just like, I'm going to make this an experience for someone.
Yeah.
And, like, that sacrifice and that amount of, like, sweat and toil that goes into Nintendo stuff, like, everyone else, it feels like they sort of lean on the hardware, and, like, games keep getting bigger and bigger and
trends
bigger.
too, dude.
Yeah.
I'm so, like, Nintendo is one of the only companies that you won't see cultural stuff in their games. They're just there to make games.
They're just games.
They're not there to give you a lecture. They're not there to, like, just come at you with an agenda. They're just there to make games. They're there to entertain you.
Yeah.
They don't treat you like an idiot. They just want you to have fun.
Right.
And as much as I'm glad that those leaks came out, a part of me feels so bad because this is a company that is so traditionally Japanese still. They come out and bow before every, like, Nintendo Direct, and, like, they're just so respectful and, like, straight-laced, and it's just such a traditionally Japanese company that just cares about making games and making good quality things, and they take such a personal pride in it.
They do, yeah.
That I understand why they're so upset, and I feel so bad for them that someone betrayed their trust like that. Yeah. But they did admittedly drop the ball a little bit in waiting so long. Like,
yeah, they shouldn't have. Like, the longer you wait, and it feels like some intern put together the release video. It's kind of like down, word came from on high that we need something for tomorrow. Yeah. And, we literally learned nothing new that we didn't know from the leaks a week.
But now we know it's confirmed. And I think that's
all
all
they did is
anybody
confirm it.
wanted.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been content with just, like, that release trailer, like, if they had just put that out. But it's just been like, the Switch 2 has been like a thing. We've been talking about this for like a year now, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the shop, like, you and I are just like, anything we hear, we're talking to each other about it.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, now that it's finally here and we can put a show on about it and talk about it, and, like, these are facts, these are things we know.
Right.
Like, I'm so excited, and I cannot. Day one.
No.
Day one.
Well, April, we're going to hear some more.
April 2nd.
Yep, with Nintendo Direct. They should have done it on the 1st, because that would have been
such a kick in the balls.
Hilarious. I would have given it to him just to have, like, the
a fun one.
Yeah, just to kind of give it back to us a little bit. Like, oh, you guys want to leak our stuff? Well, it's going to be April 1st, and you're going to be questioning the whole time whether it's if we're actually going to do it today or not.
The whole thing's been a scam.
Yeah, I would have loved it if they did April 1st, but yeah, I mean, we'll hopefully know some more at that point, and see what launch titles are coming out and everything else. See if we're right about some of these dual launches or not. So that'll be cool. And I'm looking forward to it as well. I'll be there, day one. I won't be sitting on the sidewalk because it's 2025.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah,
anymore.
I don't have to do that anymore. Someone will just bring it to my house. So plus my back wouldn't.
No, dude, my back's killing me. These chairs.
I mean, just these chairs are horrible. So,
Yeah. On that note, I think that's probably gonna do it for us today. If you guys know anything or you want to get on this conversation, let us know in the comments below. Like, we will talk Switch 2 with you all day. Like, this is like it's weird. Like, the jaded old gamers that we are. This is like one thing that we're just like united on, hands down. I'll talk to anybody about this thing all day long. So do the subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Come down to the shop. Come see this guy.
Yeah, we'll talk Switch, we'll talk anything, really. Any gaming, really. Anything else is off limits. Just all gaming all the time. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.